It's 40 years since the introduction of the world's first production mountain bike, the Stumpjumper, back in 1981. So it's quite timely, I think, to take stock of things and have a look if things have indeed changed for the better. Things such as, are we riding faster? Are the bikes better? Are we riding in different places? But critically, how much more is it costing us? Last time we did retro versus modern, a few of you got upset because you thought we were comparing apples to oranges. I mean, let's face it, of course, a modern day eMTB is going to be worlds apart from a steel 26-inch wheel cantilever bike from 4 decades ago. Therefore, it's actually really important to understand what happened in between these two bikes. I'm going to return to that in a minute. Now, a reference point is my Specialized Stumpjumper comp of 1988 vintage. It's a refinement of the first production bike of 1981, and Specialized said its strength at the time was in its descending, and I kind of liked that, and in fact I still do. Now, the essence of mountain biking back then was about getting your tyres involved in finding grip and a little bit of scariness, and absolutely nothing has changed in that respect. Cost at the time, £899, with a bit of haggling. So with that little bit of wear and tear in mind, it's now really important to tackle that evolutionary era. We're now 17 years on and 24 years of mountain bike development. This is the Specialized Enduro of 2005 vintage. S-Works naturally, costing £3,500. Now, this bike was the one that enabled former cross-country bikes to tackle seriously technical terrain. In fact, this is the very bike that I raced the Mega Avalanche on in 2005 to a top 20 result. It really is ahead of its game. You can ride downhill, you could actually race downhill on this bike. But there are some key differences between the Stumpjumper of 88 and this bike of 2005. Let's have a look at some of the key ones. The 1990s saw the introduction of suspension to mountain bikes, both front and rear. This bike of 2005 was super important because it was the first production bike to feature the mighty Fox 36 fork up front, which was done in conjunction between Specialized and Fox. But it wasn't just suspension that changed. We've got the materials. We've gone from steel to aluminium. We've got braking. This bike here features cantilever brakes. Doesn't even have the powerful V brakes of the late 90s. We've now gone to 200mm rotors, hydraulic disc brakes, far more powerful. And then, of course, there's the componentry, simple things such as the wider bars on this bike, the integrated fork and steerer, and then the simple things. We've got pins on the pedals, we've got more gears on the cassette, and of course, more advanced tyre technology. Okay then, so let's have a look at 4 points of comparison between this bike and this one. First of all, is this bike better? Yes, a fair bit. Are we going faster on this bike? Yes, for sure, especially in downhill. Are we going to different places? Yeah, I think so. But critically, is it costing us more? Yeah, for definite. It's funny, isn't it? This bike is close to my heart in so many ways. I mean, it's an incredible bike and continues to be so. Yes, it came at a price, but the key thing is this bike enabled people to go faster downhill than ever before. Yes, it's a little bit outdated now, but we'll come on to the reasons for that a little bit later. Wow, that's quite light, isn't it? Well, the first thing is you can actually just get on it. You'd have to switch the bike on. Here we go then, my first uphill on a mountain bike for probably 4 years. First impressions, it's definitely compact in terms of the size on it. But you know what? It actually goes uphill surprisingly well, even though it hasn't got the big gearing of today's mountain bikes. Do you know what? It's all right. It's actually all right. It needs a seat dropper though. Wow, it's funny, isn't it? Do you see the sign there? Push-up path. I mean, is that how far we've come after 40 years of mountain bike development? But I'll tell you where we have come to is the introduction of the dropper post. Probably the coolest thing of the past 40 years. Right, let's get on this state-of-the-art bike of 2005. My first impressions are, well, actually my first impression is you don't have to switch it on. That's pretty cool. Oh, right, okay. It's pretty compact, I have to say, in terms of the sizing. But yeah, it's all right, actually. It feels pretty direct. I mean, then again, we are on a smooth forest track, but changes gradient here now. Oh, it's just so dull though, isn't it? I mean, it's gonna take forever to get up this hill when I know that on my Levo, I'll be up and back. Oh God, yeah, this is a struggle. Oh, the gearing isn't even right. I mean, I think this bike did actually come with a triple chain set up front. We're now on a single. I'm sure that back must have had bigger gearing. Oh, I think it's just going to take me forever to get up this hill. And I'm looking at the gearing, and the gearing is so high on the bike, and the seat-tube angle is so sort of slack. I really feel like I'm perched over the back of the bike. I think geometry really has advanced massively, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Oh, time to stand up again. God, those were the days, right? Holy hell. Really grinding it out here. I think the time has come. Oh boy. I mean, I've spent days of my life doing this, pushing mountain bikes uphill. Dull. Just dull. So let's fast forward then to the present day. And to this point, I've actually been very fortunate to have ridden and tested mountain bikes for over 20 years. But here we have it, folks, the state-of-the-art modern eMTB, the Specialized Levo, S-Works, of course. So if you think about it, if the Enduro was a bike that enabled mountain bikes to tackle technical downhill terrain, then the Levo, introduced in 2015, was the bike that enabled us to conquer the uphills. So actually, if you think about it, the story is pretty simple. This time we're looking at a bike which is £13,000. Yes, I do see some raised eyebrows, but this isn't solely an eMTB phenomena. An S-Works MTB or indeed any other SRAM Axis equipped bike will be heading on over 5 figures. The Stumpy would have cost less than a tenth of the average wage back in 1988. This one today in the UK, more like about 40% of the average wage. So hang on a minute, I hear some of you saying, this bike isn't actually that much different to the Enduro. I mean, the fork, it's 2mm thicker and 10mm longer, but let's face it, this bike has got the same amount of rear travel at 150mm. It's made out of carbon fibre, but that doesn't necessarily mean to say that it's better. And it's got full electronic shifting and dropper post, but that also doesn't mean to say it's going to be a million times faster uphill or downhill. The suspension on this bike is slightly more advanced, the fork lighter and the brakes a little bit more sophisticated. And we've gone from a high rear cassette of, say, I think it's 22 on the Stumpjumper to 52 on the Levo. I mean, the Levo could probably climb steeper hills than the Stumpjumper even with the motor off. So whilst it might well be twice the money, you're also getting twice the riding, twice the fun, twice as many friends to ride with, and you're actually getting about 4 times your power. So to answer the question then, well, actually there's 4 questions, remember. Is the Levo better than the Enduro to ride? Well, yes, a fair bit so. Is it faster? Of course it is, both uphill and downhill. Do we ride the Levo in different places to the Enduro? Now that's quite interesting because actually I find that the Levo kind of replicates more of this riding we used to do on the Stumpjumper than the Enduro. But of course, the 4th factor, yes, it does cost a fair bit more. Ah, yes. Twice the money, twice the fun. It's not, is it actually? It's 4 times the price. But then I guess it's 4 times the power, right? Still not convinced, are you? Do you know what? I actually agree, which is probably why it's best looking at this bike, the standard Levo at £4,800, which is actually almost a third of the cost of this S-Works bike. And if you compare the £4,800 Levo to the Enduro, it's a much better comparison. For not only will that Levo climb 1,000,000 times faster than the Enduro, it will actually descend quicker too. Oh, feels sharp. I mean, I guess you haven't got the weight. Feels really nippy. It also feels ridiculously small. Oh God, oh, big bumps. It's just you cannot, you're going to constantly move around the bike forwards and rearwards to compensate for the lack of size on the bike. Right, I've literally just done a back-to-back run on the Enduro versus the Levo, and it's blown my mind. So I highly recommend, don't listen to what I'm going to say, get on these 2 bikes or any 2 bikes of different eras and check it out, because there's a few things. There's the smoothness of the suspension, there's the stability which comes from the bigger 29-inch wheel, and of course the stability which you get from the longer wheelbase, the slacker head angle, and the lower bottom bracket. It is absolutely mind-blowing. Oh crikey, I was going into a tight corner, so you're more balanced on a longer wheelbase bike, more definite. We've just come down off the hill into the workshop to get the tape measure out to look at the key geometry differences between these 2 bikes, because apart from the motor, that's possibly one of the biggest differences between the bikes. Oh, and also the wheel size. Remember, 29, 27.5 on this, 26 on that. Right, geometry numbers. We've got a slacker head angle on this compared to that, a steeper C-tube angle. Remember, this bike is built for climbing and descending as well. Big differences, the bottom bracket heights, 335 millimeters on this bike, 360 on that bike. So that contributes to this bike being a better bike in corners than that. And the chainstay, 425 plays 450. But remember, this bike can be adjusted in terms of geometry in so many ways. And one final thing is the wheelbase, which contributes to the stability of the bike. This bike is actually 100 millimeters longer in the wheelbase than that. But remember, this bike is an S4, which is a kind of large, and that bike is a medium. So if you take 25 mil off, which is what you'd expect from difference in the bikes, probably is a 75 mil difference in real terms. Still a hell of a lot. It's quite interesting in as much as today it would be wrong for me at 6 foot to ride a size medium bike. Back in around 2000, 2004, 2005, there was a perception amongst people that a medium was the only bike you needed. So I think that has changed dramatically in the past 15 years. So added to that is the fact that the reach on this bike compared to the Levo is so much smaller. So that also contributes to the stability and the poise you have when you're on the bike. I mean, look how small this bike looks to me. Like I mentioned, it is a roller skate. And the moral of the story at the end of the day. Well, it's pretty simple really. The fact that the Enduro can descend so much better than the Stumpjumper of 1988. And this bike, the Levo, can go both uphill and downhill faster than that one. But I think the key thing that what today's taught us is the fact that it's actually geometry and wheel size which has contributed to the increased speed that we ride our e-mountain bikes, and also the fact that whilst we look at both these S-Works bikes as being the pinnacle, such bikes as the Turbo Levo at £4,800 should equally be considered in terms of advancement. So folks, let us know your thoughts. Please don't forget to subscribe to EMBN, and we'll see you next time.